important topic that rarely gets highlighted called PMDD. How can we get the education out to a broader audience?
Okay, good question, great question. So I definitely think that schools should be required to implement some type of menstrual health education into the school systems, to include boys as well, right? Because boys can carry that stigma, those sentiments of ill, nasty, and to just dispel some of those myths around, our cycle and, our periods, what they are, what they aren't,
Just to make it a more comfortable
Yes,
conversation for women to have around their brothers, their uncles,
right,
their fathers, single fathers who are raising
exactly,
young women.
young women. They need that, those resources, they need that education as well. So people aren't operating in the dark around, their menstrual cycle, because again, many women are coming into the knowledge of endometriosis, fibroids, and as you stated, there are some, men that are raising their daughters. How are they getting that education? Where does that
come
from for them? You know what I mean? But I think the schools would be a great place to start, but also, initiatives like myself and others that are in the community, trying to do that grassroots work of just bringing the awareness to one, period of poverty, bringing the awareness about a woman's menstrual cycle and just the 4 phases, right? Typically, we know just about, I believe for about a week, but there's the follicular phase, there's the luteal phase, there's that ovulatory stage, you know what I mean? So just learning each of those cycles and what's happening to your body at each one of those cycles to just help you better navigate the world, navigate, relationships, navigate how we show up at our jobs, but I think a good place to start where it can be effective is just having a full comprehensive education within our school systems, probably starting in elementary school, because girls are starting their cycle earlier and earlier, I think I was about 6th, 7th grade when I started my cycle, but I know there's some, young girls that are starting in 2nd grade, right? So who's getting in front of that? You know what I mean? So I think the schools should definitely implement some type of education around that, as well as, community initiatives to kind of keep that education kind of going.
Yes, beautiful. And obviously I want to re-highlight your platform as well, because you're really doing a lot of good work in the education out there. And I started Melanin Meets Mental Health because I wanted to be able to share information that I was also unfamiliar with, and I hope that our platforms, young women will be able to find.
Right.
And I hope this message is out there and we can start to do that grassroots work that you mentioned, and hopefully in the next few years really kind of change the conversation around periods.
Right.
It would really be a beautiful thing for us to do.
Absolutely, and even just for your platform as well, and bringing in and bridging in that gap for Black women, right? Because again, how we show up and how doctors show up for us in the healthcare system looks totally different, right? So I think it's, very important to get the message out there, just for Black women to just
Pay attention
to your body, yes, and know you're not crazy, advocate for yourself at these doctor's office, because again, even with my experience, again, I'm 38, and the experience that I had with that, or at that time I was 38, the experience that I had with that doctor just completely shut me down, you know what I mean? So what does that look like for a girl that's younger than me, a young woman that's younger than me that may not have the confidence or the willpower to advocate for herself,
It could be really difficult for women just to show up with that checklist.
Exactly, so just really listening to yourself, know you're not crazy, give yourself some grace as you're navigating, whatever your, diagnosis is or whatever you're experiencing, but for Black women, for us, just the way that our messaging, some of the messaging that's, towards us, or some of the way that we've been socialized is kind of like just go, 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 go,
Very
and
much so.
not necessarily take a pause and listen to
What's going on
what's
internally.
going on internally with you, girl. I think we really need to, like, one, move all the way over to the slow lane so we can really, hear what's going on with ourselves, because I feel like if I would have did that a lot earlier, maybe my diagnosis wouldn't have been exacerbated into now two mental health, disorders. But the other one, we'll save that for
Another episode.
Okay.
I have the same impression about in our community. I think we're just socialized to work very hard.
Mm-hmm.
We're always climbing that imaginary ladder
Yep.
to that next highest position.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of it myself. I'm 32 now, and throughout my 20s, I was very much focused on my work.
Yeah.
And even just hearing you talk about some of the signs and symptoms, of course, I do not want to self-diagnose. We don't want to encourage anyone to self-diagnose, but just listening to some things like maybe depression, mood swings, some of that slower cognition are all red flags that I think I saw throughout my 20s. And it may not necessarily be PMDD, of course, but they were things that I ignored.
Right.
Because I'm thinking to myself, but I gotta work tomorrow.
Exactly.
So we're gonna go home, we're gonna cry a little bit,
And we're gonna be right
and
back.
we're gonna put it right back together
Exactly.
the following day and get to work and do what needs to be
And do what needs to be done.
to be
I need to show up, I need to do this, I need to present this way.
You have to almost perform.
Exactly. So all the different messaging, that Black women get, and the pressure that we're under to, like you said, to perform, it creates an environment, where one, we're coming down so harshly on ourselves, and then now this is the output. You have PMDD, right? Or you have another mental health disorder. So I think for Black women, we definitely need to take a step back. And again, in hindsight, I feel like it's easier said than done, because the same thing, that was my experience in my 20s. Like, I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to get my education, I need to do this, I need to get to this next step, I need to do this, and that grind of
That
constant go, it never ends. And what is good enough? You know what I mean? Like, where do you stop?
And realistically, of course I want to acknowledge that some people have to actually go, because they're trying to take care of their children, or their families. And like you said, it can be very difficult. It's easier said than done. So, we just want to encourage that if you do have a moment where you have a moment to yourself, maybe, do you deserve the vacation? Absolutely. Can you schedule a doctor's appointment the day before, just to touch base with your doctor on some of the things you might have been experiencing before you go have the time of your life? I would highly encourage you. The time is really short for you. On the weekends, I know it can be very difficult because we work so hard, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Right.
Appointments on the weekend are so hard to get, and I hope that's something that can change in the near future. Everybody's off on the weekend, of course. But I just really want to encourage the audience that if you have an opportunity, no matter how brief that opportunity may be, use different apps like ZocDoc, or take a moment to call your insurance on your lunch break and see if they can connect you to an OBGYN, for example, or just a PCP to go over different things. And if you can really fit that into your schedule, I think it's well worth that time that you make for yourself.
Also, just advocating for yourself, right? Again, something nobody really teaches us. I think we go to the doctor and it's like, okay, I'm in good hands because this is the
You'll
doctor.
tell me everything I need to know.
Exactly.
I'll let you figure it out.
Exactly, because you're the doctor. You have these grand credentials, so you'll tell me, But I find that that's not how you need to navigate the healthcare system. You really need to, like I do, I sit, write down a list. This is what I've been experiencing, which also would like to encourage women to get a journal. And when you're, coming up on your cycle, write down kind of what you're experiencing. So that way you can take that to the doctor and be like, oh, this is the time frame. I felt extremely depressed, or, I had heightened anger, and then you can have these lists of questions and symptoms to present to your doctor and say, hey, well, what about this? Well, hey, let me ask you about this, right? Instead of trying to go in there with, oh, the doctor is just going to
And tell me
everything I need to know.
I really like the concept of the toolbox and having that journal in your toolbox. And I'll make sure that I list some resources for you guys at the end of the episode. Because one of the apps that actually worked for me, I actually have endometriosis.
Okay.
So in very heavy, irregular periods. And one of the apps that really worked for me was, I think it's called Flow.
Oh yes, I love that app. I love Flow.
So it keeps you on track, and my memory is like terrible. So I could, every time I would go to the doctor, of course the first, when was your last period?
Exactly. Let me go on my Flow app and let me check that out for you.
For a long time, for me, I couldn't do that. It was just, I had no idea. 6 months ago, 3 months ago,
Okay.
I just never kept track because it was so normal to be irregular for me.
Gotcha.
And then once I got involved with the Flow app, it was like, no problem,
No
I got you.
problem.
I left the 3rd of last month, I had my period. So I really would encourage everyone to check out the resources at the end of this episode and start building that toolbox that Jacqueline is mentioning with your journal.
Questions that you want to present to your healthcare provider, and just being able, a list of questions to advocate for yourself, because you really have to take your, health into your own hands, and present that to your healthcare providers. Again, if you are diagnosed with a PMDD diagnosis, know that they work, your psychiatrist, well, you should be referred to a psychiatrist, and your OBGYN kind of work in tandem as far as a treatment plan for you. I was working with my psychiatrist for some time, and she provided me a list of ways that we can manage it. So I don't know if we mentioned earlier, but I will mention it again, that PMDD is treated, one way that they treat PMDD is with antidepressants, right? And that is just one way that they can do that. I opted not to go that route. I opted for kind of more of a holistic approach, but a part of that is also therapy that my psychiatrist suggested, to just let that be like a part of your battle rhythm and part of your treatment plan is to have a therapist. And
someone who can kind of process the emotions of your
exactly, because when you're in it, it feels so valid. You know what I mean? That anger feels so valid. That hopelessness, the moments of hopelessness of why am I even here? What are we doing? You know what I mean? It feels so valid in that moment that it's really hard to like delineate sometimes,
and get out of this really dark space.
Get out of this dark space. It's like I'm on a loop and I can't get off this loop. How do I get off this loop?
It's so important to have a support system, your friends, your family. If you're someone that doesn't have too many friends, or whether you do or whether you don't, I really appreciate the idea of getting connected to a treatment team and building that team for that support, and getting connected to a social worker or a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, whatever that might be for you and what your treatment training builds. Just really tapping into that support, because it's important. It's very necessary for your care.
Definitely, for your quality of life, right? There's not, what do I want to say? Don't just, I think you had mentioned it earlier on, when we were speaking about self-diagnosis, like I don't want anybody to hear my conversation, our conversation, but like, oh yeah, that's me too. You know what I mean? No, go.
You can relate to something.
Right, you can relate, but go get properly diagnosed by, licensed medical professionals, so they can, map out your treatment plan. Because my treatment plan, again, I didn't opt for the antidepressants, for other reasons, but that may work for you. You know what I mean? Like, you need to strategize a treatment plan that works well for you. That may look different from each person that's been diagnosed with PMDD or any other mental health disorder. So I think it's really important. Yes, we want this to resonate with people, my experience, but I also, want to
We don't want to cause alarm.
exactly. I want to reiterate.
We don't want you to Google your symptoms.
Exactly. And be like, oh yeah,
Google
I have that too.
Yeah, right.
Go get properly diagnosed from a medical care professional on PMDD.
And if you can, I know you know that I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So a part of our roles is to really work with, patients and people in the community to advocate for them and connect them to resources. So again, at the end of this episode, I will list some resources. I do want to encourage people to reach out if you feel like you need a little extra support and getting connected to resources. And Jacqueline, if anyone wanted to reach out to you to learn more about PMDD or just to thank you for what you shared,
Absolutely.
how can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on social media. My presence is more so on Instagram at I.Oriflow. Again, I will be launching my website next month. Next month is period Poverty Awareness Week in May, so I will be launching around that time.
Congratulations. Well, I really appreciate you as our first guest. I think it was a wonderful experience. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you have any, further questions for Jacqueline or myself, please comment below. You can send me, if it's more personal information, you can send us direct messages